back in 2019, I started running a business, and it sounds cooler than it is because let's see, I had like 3,200 bucks in my pocket and decided to go all in. So went and got a construction contract from two investors, flipping a house in Farmington. I am a third generation contractor, so I had the experience and I knew what I was doing, but at the same time, I did not know what I was doing running a business. Hey, my name's Clark Trucks. I own Modern Ozarks. I'm out here at Schwartz Project, and I just want to go through what I've learned along the way and what my journeys look like managing cash flow and how to budget for starting a business. Went to sign the contract with them and felt like, yes, it's a big number. It's $48,000. Let me tell you, that is not a lot when after expenses and you're only doing it for cost plus 10%. And so from there, let's see, I had to figure out some help. So went to Lowe's at 5 a.m. Quickly found out Lowe's does not open at 5 a.m. and ran into some really cool people that were able to tag along during that initial journey. So started out with a guy named John. Found him, Lowe's. He was a masonry guy, kind of jack of all trades. Became a good friend, helped me along the way get started. Brought on his girlfriend, brought on his good buddy, and sooner or later we had a little crew and we were doing this. And then through this first project, I found a guy named Daniel who was doing tile. And come to find out, John was taking deep advantage of me. And I had to learn from my lessons there, but I'm super grateful for the experience and getting started, and the people management is so hard, but if I wouldn't have been organized, I wouldn't have gotten this far. And so money management, I think, is one of the most important roles because no one wants to rob Peter to pay Paul. And I think as a builder, I've learned that lesson over and over again because it's really hard to manage. And so what's helped me the most is kind of going back to the Dave Ramsey style of envelopes and cash. And like when I think of that, I think of projects and cash, of like separating accounts, but it just depends on the level of like how I separate it, so to speak. And so I use an app called Rocket Money. That's just for my personal and my business to see where my spending is, to budget, and then also to kind of plan for the future. So if I'm looking at taking on a project, depending on how big, it takes an operating capital there. And so typically on a job, I do an initial deposit on a residential job or a mobilization fee on a commercial job. And I really want to make sure I'm managing that cash to be able to afford along the way and not have to get another job or to steal from another client over here to pay this one. And you just don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul. Getting out of that is definitely my ultimate goal always, in staying out of that. And so the way I do that is just having a managing budget of this is the cash that I want on hand, and kind of just putting some processes in place that I can manage this going forward, and hopefully to, get bigger projects and be able to do cooler things, but it takes capital. So cash flow management 101. Okay, so systems I put in place that just have helped me to kind of along the journey of just kind of managing it is a perimeter, like a minimum price that I'm going to have in my bank account and that checks go out, and then having a billing cycle of like, this check comes in, bill, and then contracts. So I really think one of the most important jobs as a contractor is the root word contract. But a lot of people think contract between the client and the builder. Well, I'm talking about the builder to the subcontractors, even to the vendors, having a set amount planned. And I think that all goes back to building the budget and with a good eye and like making sure that you've accounted for everything. And so that you can take it then and build a process and say, hey, here's what I'm planning to spend. And then here's how I'm planning to do it. And then kind of creating a roadmap of, hey, if I bill the 1st and I pay the 15th, that gives me time to invoice the client the 5th and get paid the 20th, or so to speak. You can get a system like that. And so our system looks a little bit different. Actually, it looks like we invoice the 1st and the 15th on a 15-day net 15. And then we pay the 5th and the 20th. That's an ideal world. And so anyways, I think at all times there's always variables, there's always things happening. And so it's always good to keep cash on hand. It's always good to plan, but making sure that you're not digging a hole for yourself and that, you're able to kind of keep the project moving, but also to make money on the project too. So I'm a big believer in over planning and more the conservative route, because I'm super risky. I think getting into a new business and like you don't know how much risk there actually is there. The statistics speak for themselves on failure rates and all of that. But I think really when you start a business, having kind of building up, I mean, I really started with $3,200 and really building from there. The goal now is 6 months of operating expenses. And so that at any given time, I have 6 months to be able to survive and not necessarily relying on another job or relying on things that may not happen. So anyways, I think the big thing for me is the process there of putting away money for 6 months of operating expenses. Because I think this overhead thing that no one likes to talk about, because it's the beast. You get the trucks, you get the office, you get the employees, that they all require weekly, monthly payments, the phones, the internet, it all kind of adds up, and they all want contracts too on the internet service and all that. So planning ahead and having that system to where you're putting money away. All right, so building up to that 6 months, I kind of did it with a process of like, every time I have over X in my account, I'm going to transfer it over to this. Until that bucket is 6 months of operating expenses, I would recommend building that first. But after that, I'm really big on living by a structure. I think if you're a business owner, you kind of have a variable of what you take home at different times. And so living within 70% of what you're making is a really good rule for me. Putting a lot in the giving and a lot in the investment pool. I think long term, my goal is to kind of filter all the money I'm making from the business into investments. One day are paying us and we can be financially free, right? I think that's the American dream of financial freedom. But anyways, going into that and kind of focusing in on, hey, this is what works for me. I'm trying just like everybody else to get this right. But for right now, it's really worked of like putting money away, focusing on investments like my home. I want to build an Airbnb next to it. That's coming up. So anyways, that's the fun stuff. And then how do I use the construction vehicle and how can I add value to these properties? Okay, so just kind of a little recap. 3 things that I recommend when you're looking at your budget is to really just get started. Massive action always wins. It's scary. I think there's unknowns in starting your own business and stuff, but it's super rewarding. It can be if you stick with it long enough. The next thing would be build processes and systems that you can follow to manage your cash flow. Money management is so important in a business, and I think especially as a builder, it's like on these projects, you want to make sure that you manage the budget right. The third thing would be build a roadmap towards the future, what that looks like. For me, it's investing. It's investing in real estate because I'm a builder, and so I want to add value through my construction company into these real estate projects. And so build a long-term goal, what that looks like financially, and yeah, drop me a DM or reach out to me if you want to hear more.